state. Yet another video of irregular vote counting was caught on camera in Bende Ward. But this time, the counting was done in the presence of Deputy Speaker Benjamin Kalu. The video has sparked outrage, as Kalu also serves as a coalition officer for the state at large. Let's take a look.
Two candidates. One is my candidate, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The other man there, I don't know him.
Only in Wakato. I don't know him. And then they were counting people standing behind Benjamin Kalu, and they counted a lot of people. So Danny got in the southwest. Whether those figures are correct or not remains to be seen, because in the Benjamin Deputy Speaker case, we saw that the counting, in fact, the man was counting, jumped from 110 to 7,000.
We have it. We have it. Of course, I sent it to you. Well, all right. Before I come to you.
One is my candidate, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The other man there, I don't know him. Only in Wakato. So please, those who came to monitor this election, over to you. You can count.
Somebody got it. All right, the counting is starting now. Well, number one, yeah. Number two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11. Should take over this county. 11. 1,011. 1,012. 1,014. 1,007.
This is never going to be a pretext for what's going to happen in the next election. Because if they are now saying that if President Tinubu can get 11 million within his own party, that means he can't get anything less than that. That's a bad narrative. That's a pretext for rigging. Anybody that repeats that narrative is part of rigging in this country. That person should be dealt with. These are no elections. We're just checking the number of Iba and I. Are you telling me 91% of registered member in that political? That's why I asked something like that question. If 11 million people voted for president, you're saying 91% turnout. Which election has 91% turnout? In a democracy where we have less than 30% turnout. So anybody that is repeating that narrative that it shows that President Tinubu is not going to get anything less than a million votes is part of those rigging in this country. And people like that should be condemned and be abused. Because this is a pretext for rigging in the next election. And INEC, Shan, you know INEC chairman, you have not still independently put yourself forward for independent auditors to forensically look at your own Twitter handle with that case. You know, we are still looking at that matter. These are the things we'll see after the election.
Imagine watching the fate of your nation's democracy being debated, not in a quiet courtroom, but in a tense, high-stakes confrontation.
Right, like right on live national television.
Exactly. The numbers aren't adding up, the cameras are rolling, and millions of people are just watching it unfold in real time.
Yeah.
Today, we are looking at a stack of reports analyzing exactly that kind of explosive moment. It happened on Nigeria's Arise TV.
Right, where the broadcaster, Rufai Oseni, aggressively confronted the country's deputy speaker over election integrity.
And our mission for this to unpack that collision, the clash between aggressive live journalism and formal legal processes.
Yeah, and exploring how that tension ultimately rewires public trust in a democracy.
Right.
Because it is a collision of two entirely different systems of accountability.
Right.
When you read through the transcripts of this Arise TV segment, Rufai wasn't just, conducting a polite interview.
Yeah, definitely not.
He was relentlessly pressing the deputy speaker on glaring inconsistencies in election figures and Well, the lack of transparency invade collation.
Right. And to understand why this struck such a nerve with the public, we really have to look at how that collation process actually works. Because collation isn't just sitting in a room counting paper ballots. It's an incredibly fragile logistical chain. You're physically and digitally moving numbers from tens of thousands of local polling units to a central hub.
Precisely. And the core of the dispute in these reports is what actually happened during that transit.
Right.
Citizens were looking at the raw numbers recorded at their local polling units and then seeing completely different final announcements at the national level.
Like the math just wasn't mathing.
Exactly. So when Rufai demanded answers on live TV, he was tapping into this massive reservoir of public frustration. People felt the transparency broke down precisely where it mattered most.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like being a frustrated diner. You know, your bill is clearly wrong, so you just storm into the restaurant kitchen to confront the chef directly.
Right.
Rather than waiting for the manager to do a formal audit, because relying on a post-election legal audit feels like trying to unbake a cake to see if the baker used spoiled milk.
That is exactly how the public visualizes it.
Yeah.
Once a winner is sworn in, separating the bad votes from the good ones through a really slow legal process feels impossible to the average voter. They want the people in charge confronted immediately.
Right. On the spot.
But the officials and institutions involved, like the Independent National Electoral Commission or INA,
Right.
they argue that a live television broadcast is fundamentally incapable of conducting a forensic audit. Their defense is that elections of this scale naturally involve logistical errors, right? Errors that aren't inherently malicious.
Sure.
They argue that these disputes belong in structured legal proceedings where evidence can be methodically examined, not used as ammunition in an emotional live debate.
Wait, but why should citizens trust a closed-door legal audit when they literally watch the numbers change in transit?
Yeah, it's a tough sell.
I mean, structured courtroom questioning might be methodical, but to a skeptical public, it often just looks like a system designed to produce polished political explanations.
Right.
Entirely insulated from actual public scrutiny.
And looking at the source reports from both sides, you see two completely different realities reacting to that exact skepticism. Historically, aggressive journalism has justified itself as the ultimate check on power, forcing accountability when institutions are too slow or, frankly, too compromised to do it themselves.
Right, because it forcefully drags the issue into the light.
Exactly. Many citizens view this broadcast as a necessary intervention to actually improve political transparency. But the institutional counterargument is that media personalities manufacture these dramatic confrontations, primarily for ratings. Yeah. Officials argue that when you replace structured courtroom questioning with TV spectacles, you aren't actually finding the truth. You're just recklessly damaging voter confidence.
Which erodes trust in the very institutions built to protect the democratic process. It really just comes down to a clash of timelines and expectations. Viral media moments are heavily shaping everyday voter confidence because they offer that immediate validation that the public craves. But those moments are colliding head-on with legal systems built on the premise that justice requires slow, methodical review.
Which leaves us at a really fascinating intersection.
Yeah.
Whether you view these broadcast confrontations as essential democratic accountability or as dangerous theatrical disruptions, there is no denying they are permanently altering how citizens perceive the legitimacy of their own governments.
It really forces you to wonder what happens next. If every single electoral dispute becomes a televised high-stakes spectacle, will we eventually become entirely desensitized to both the media's screaming alarms and the court's final rulings?